Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Creative Careers, where we interview folks working in arts-related careers from all over the place. And today we are interviewing a theater critic. Welcome, Lily Janiak.
Hello.
I'm so excited you could be here with us today. So tell us a little bit about just the basics. What does a theater critic do? And maybe you specifically, what do you do in your work with this?
So I get to see a lot of plays and musicals and bits of weird experimental performance art, sometimes circus, sometimes drag. It really runs the gamut, and I write reviews of these shows that I see, sort of with the idea of telling readers maybe whether this is a show that's worth your time and money, but also hopefully kind of asking some broader questions about what does this show mean in the context of theater here in the Bay Area, in the history of the art form. How does it relate to what's going on in our world? So it's a really wonderful, constantly stimulating job. I also get to write lots of interviews, features, Q&As. I get to do some investigative stories, so where I'm kind of exploring a larger issue and interviewing many sources and trying to weave together some sort of narrative. And lately, because of the coronavirus, I've been doing a lot more of that than I have been reviewing, just because there are many fewer shows. Though there are still some online productions I can review. There are radio plays happening. So I always love to tell people that, even though theaters are shut down, as long as there are still theater people, I still have stories to tell. So
I love that. So tell us a little bit about how you got here. Where is this something you were always interested in? Did it kind of come out of something else? What was your journey like to get here?
I was always a theater person since I was a little kid, putting on shows on my grandma's staircase and recruiting all my cousins. I thought I wanted to be an actor because that was maybe the only profession in theater I really knew about. It's certainly the most visible one for the lay people. But I probably wasn't meant to be an actor. After high school, when I was in college, I didn't get cast in any of the shows I auditioned for 2 years. And I auditioned for every show I possibly could. I think I got a call back once, and that felt like a little blessing from the heavens or something. But I still knew I loved theater, and this was my art form. And I guess I kind of had this voice in my head that was like, if you don't pursue theater, you're going to be really disappointed. Like, you'll feel like you've missed out or given up. So I tried directing in college, but I'm not really a visual person. I tried playwriting, but I mostly just like to write in my own voice, I realized. So I kind of found theater criticism through process of elimination. But it wasn't until I moved out to the Bay Area in 2009. I was assistant directing a show at Marin Theater Company as an intern. And one of the actors in the production, it was called Magic Forest Farm. It was about a hippie commune in like rural Northern California somewhere. She asked everybody who was in the car with her on the ride home one night, what's your next project? I didn't have one. She said, what would you do ideally? And I kind of just said out loud for the first time, I'd like to be a theater critic, maybe. And she said, oh, I can still see her eyes in the rear view mirror as she's driving. I can make that happen. How about that, So she knew an editor at a small publication called the San Francisco Bay Times, which is an LGBT paper. And she put me in touch. He and I went together to a show so that he could meet me. The next show we went to, it was my job to review it, or like as sort of a trial review. And he was going along as backup in case, I don't know, I was a terrible writer or something. But he liked my work, and the rest was, I don't want to say the rest was history, because there were many times when I gave up on this job, or on this profession, because there aren't very many paid theater critics. I believe I'm currently the only one with a full-time theater criticism job in the Bay Area. And I don't know if that's also true for like Northern California, but it's a rare profession. And I was like, I'm probably not going to be the next theater critic at the San Francisco Chronicle. So I freelanced as a writer for a long time, and I also went into fundraising for not for a long time, but for a couple of years. I was schmoozing with donors and pouring them wine during intermission, getting to know like why they loved this particular theater so that I could pitch them on supporting particular projects. And I was like okay at that job. By the way, theater people, there are always lots of fundraising jobs. So if you are good at communicating, if you are passionate about your art form, if you like kind of figuring out what other people are all about and like drawing that out of them, that could really be a job for you. So just a little side note, but I thought, hey, I could do this for the rest of my life. This is fine. I'm like okay at it. I'm pretty good, maybe. And I get to talk to committed, passionate theater people about why they love a show or an actor every day. So, but then this job at the Chronicle came up. A magazine where I used to work asked if I would write a profile on the gentleman who is retiring. His name is Rob Hurwitz, just kind of assessing his life and work and what he brought to theater in the Bay Area. And when I was interviewing him, which was like a 2-hour interview, I felt, ooh, I miss this, and I think I could do this job. I really want to apply. So I did, and I got it.
That's fantastic. I'm intrigued that you had all these different ways of connecting to theater. Like you knew you wanted to be involved in theater. So now that you've kind of landed in theater criticism, how does this connect to and feed your love of theater, especially in unique ways that maybe the other ones didn't exactly?
Oh, I mean, first of all, I get to see a lot more shows than maybe even a lot of theater artists do. Because say you're a regularly employed director, actor, you might only see the show you're working on for 2 months. And then maybe you'll have a break between then and your next project, but maybe you won't. I mean, there might be a whole 4-month period where you're kind of only in your own world as an artist. Me, I could see shows 7 days a week if I wanted to. Usually I don't. Sometimes I do review 5 or 6 shows in a single week, which is definitely pushing it. But I just get to really have a broad sense of the kind of art that's being made all over the Bay Area. But even I can't see it all. I want to. Like, it's impossible for one person to see the hundreds and hundreds of shows that might be happening. I don't want to necessarily say at one moment, but certainly in a month. Oh my gosh. So also I have this weird urge to really wrestle with what I thought about a show. You know how like when you're walking out of either a play or a movie theater and maybe you have someone with you and you start to talk about, oh, did you like it? That like 2-sentence version of that conversation is never enough for me. I want to really figure out what I thought and why, and what is the specific thing an actor did that made me think that, and what does that mean? What is the significance of that? And I want to try to find just the right word so that I can convey that to other people. It's like when that combination of words that is just right for this particular situation that you've never used before for any other thing you've written, when that comes to you, that is just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've gotten a gift. So I feel like I'm like wrestling with my impressions, and I'm trying to like force them into language form. And I guess I just really relish that fight. I also love that I can tell Chronicle readers, the theater community, about artists or companies they've never heard of before, that I can really make a case for why someone is important. And it's like, of course, it's their work that makes them meaningful and impactful, but I get to help make that meaningful and impactful in the way I write about it. Not just like the fact that I'm writing about it, though that's also true, but if I find the elevated, urgent language that says, yeah, you need to pay attention to this company, this playwright, or you're missing out on something major. If I can do that, that's, gosh, it's not every day. I will, that's maybe a rare occurrence. But gosh, what a wonderful feeling.
I love that. What were some of the, when you made this transition to to theater criticism, what were some of the skills that you really worked to hone to get to the level where you're at?
Well, you have to really know yourself and not be swayed by outside forces in any sort of subtle way. So that ability to like reach deep in and know, yes, this is what I think, and I'm not afraid of that, and no one else. I will listen to other people's opinions, and maybe they can help me figure out my own, but I won't let other people make me feel bad for what I think. And I don't necessarily have a single word for that skill. Maybe it's an integrity, maybe it's self-possession, but that is just, whoa, that is so key to this job. Also, focus. When I write a review, so I'll get home from a show, maybe 11 o'clock on an early night. Sometimes it's midnight or later, and I have to file my story, my review, by the next morning at 9:30. And somewhere in there, I'm supposed to sleep. So I've got, 9.5, 10 hours to sleep and write 600, 700, 800 words. And I can't waste time. I have to be able to get totally into one train of thought so that I can meet my deadlines. So if you're a daydreamer, if you need like time to consider before you can really gestate a piece, a daily print newspaper probably isn't the place for you, though maybe a magazine is. I will say that in high school, I was that kid who, like, if I was writing a paper, I would take my my book, the English book that I was writing about, and I would write on note cards every single quote that I was going to use. And that was after of course, underlining them and taking serious notes on the text itself. And then I would reorganize them all over the floor in my bedroom. And I can't even imagine taking that much time on anything now, on any, even a huge project. It's so foreign to me. But if you told me when I was, 16 that I would be writing this fast and just going, I wouldn't have believed I could do it. So it is a skill you can learn, no matter how slow you are right now, because I was that slow.
You talked a little bit about this is not an easily attained career. There are not a lot of these out there, especially that are full-time. So I'd love you to speak very quickly to, if somebody, you talked about what you love about this, you talked about the skills that you were able to use. If somebody's like, well, I have these interests and I have these skills and they fit beautifully with theater criticism, but what might be some other ways that they can still feed those interests or use those skills alongside this?
Absolutely. So speaking for the Chronicle, and also pretty much every other publication I've worked with, Theater Bay Area when they had a magazine, American Theater Magazine, The Village Voice, RIP, publications are always looking for new voices. And it's not because they're charitable and generous and want to help you out. It's because they know that your voice helps keep them fresh. It helps them tell the stories they haven't told before from the perspectives that they haven't previously considered. So we are all, I really can't think of a publication for whom this isn't the case, looking for freelancers all the time. And if you're just getting started, thinking about getting started, that's the way to go. Send in some writing samples, tell an editor the kinds of stories you're interested in writing, maybe send 3 or 4 ideas of specific stories you could write. Freelance is how I got found my way into this world. And at the Chronicle, we have a film critic, we have a visual arts critic, we have a classical music critic, a pop music critic, and then we also have a bunch of reporters who, like us, write features and interviews. But that's that is what they spend all their time on. So if the idea of reviewing is a little bit scary to you, but you really get jazzed about the idea of asking artists how and why they make their art, being an arts and entertainment reporter could absolutely be a line of work for you. And there are a lot more of them than there are of me at the Chronicle.
Awesome. As we close things out, I loved how you even actually segued into my final question here, looking at what is something that somebody, if they're listening to this and they think, I think I want to do this someday, but maybe don't feel quite ready yet to send in writing samples to anyone, what's something that they could do today from home to improve some of these skills?
I so love that that's one of your questions. Write before anyone gives you permission to, write before you have readers, write before you have an editor, write before you have an outlet, write when it's just yourself. Make it a practice, the way someone might run for exercise or meditate. Make writing one of your practices and develop the discipline to stick to it and make it a part of your life. When I was writing at the SF Bay Times, I started to feel that I had this other register I wanted to write in, this other voice I wanted to use, that was more personal, for lack of a better word, and more adventurous, maybe a little weirder, maybe less professional sounding. So in addition to my published work, I kept up a blog at the same time. And still to this day, I hear from theater artists that the work I did there was really important to them, or really meaningful to them, that it showed them a different side of me. And I just nobody was forcing me to do that. I didn't have anyone grading my papers, or I didn't have any editors being like, where's that story, Lily? And so sometimes I didn't feel like doing it, and it was torture to get the words out. Still is, by the way. That's every day. That never goes away. But it really forced me to become a writer, and to saying I am a writer or I am an artist is like a scary thing. It feels like, how do I get to decide that I have that label, that I'm that kind of person? Do I get, like, what does it take to really be a writer? But even before I started writing for publications that people have heard of, even before people started reading my work, I knew I was a writer because I did that. And that gave me the confidence to not depend, because I didn't have to depend on anyone else's validation.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being willing to talk to us today. I'm really excited to get to share this.
My pleasure.
All right, folks, thank you so much for checking in. Don't forget to tune in again at 1 p.m. tomorrow for more Let's Be Creative Arts content. We'll see you then.